There's Mark.
You're in Rome?
Mark's in Rome.
You're on mute too.
You're muted.
Buongiorno.
Okay. I'm a little jet lagged.
Yeah.
Can we catch Corona on Zoom from Mark in Rome?
Mhm. I think everybody's here. 2 more minutes. What time is it over there, Mark?
It's 2 in the morning, 1:30. Where's that box that I could see the participants again?
All right, go up into the right hand upper corner. Gallery, you want gallery view. The right upper hand corner of your screen. Hold your cursor over it and you want to select gallery view. And then you see everybody in little boxes. Got it?
No. I was in my right-hand corner of my picture. Oh, there you go.
No, up at the top of the screen.
Yeah.
Put your mouse on the right outer corner along the black border around everybody's pictures. Top right corner.
Yeah, I'm not getting it.
It says either gallery view or switch to active speaker. So you want to have it. What do you want, a computer or an iPad?
Computer. Gallery view. Okay, I see gallery
There you go.
view.
Yeah, click
Hit
that.
it.
But I don't see that column where,
On the bottom of your screen, Mark,
yep.
click where it says participants.
Yes, that's the
is?
one, right? Now, how do I get that in the right hand?
When you click it, it'll open.
Yeah. I know what I did wrong here, I think. Exit full screen. Okay, got it now. Thank you.
You're
Okay,
welcome.
I decided to go virtual background like you, Mark.
All right, where are you?
I'm on the.
That looks like the Passaic River right there by Patterson. No.
Exactly, right there.
Hey guys, how's everybody?
It's actually the view from my brother's backyard.
Nice. In Greece?
Yeah,
Sweet.
Your brother went to Greece to get away from you, George?
yeah. Everybody goes there to get away from me.
That's nice.
all right, I think everybody who was going to join us is here.
Is Kevin on yet? Kevin Hanley?
Oh, no.
Don't see him.
I just spoke to him though. He should be logging on, so he should be on in any minute.
We are live on YouTube, so just be aware.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
I guess you let us know, Maureen, when you think we're ready to go.
Yeah, as soon as Kevin's here.
All right, we should be on in a minute.
He confirmed with me that he has the invitation with the link, so.
I like that you wore a sport jacket even to the virtual meeting.
You know,
Rob. Look at you.
wait a minute. For the school board meeting, I didn't, and
I wore a blue T-shirt especially for the occasion.
it looks black, George.
Well, gotta be, that would be too formal.
You look like you're going to a rumble.
I just came from one. Who knows?
Did Kevin ever do the practice one, Maureen?
He did. He jumped in a little bit late, but he did join.
Oh, okay, so he should know, all right.
Yeah. And he said he uses it for other things, so I hope he's not having a problem. How long ago did you speak with him?
I just got off the phone with him. I was talking to him when I walked away.
Okay.
So he said he was getting on, and maybe he just got to log on, and it's taking him a while or something. Let me see.
Oh, man, here he is.
There he is.
Okay, that's good.
He's muted. He's got on mute.
Kevin,
Kevin, you have to unmute yourself.
unmute.
I like that he has a tie on.
Oh, there's Mike. Okay.
He won up Rob.
Am I mute? No.
Now,
You're
now,
good.
now.
Okay,
We can hear.
okay.
Well, he's getting paid to be here, so he should dress up.
I thought we were all getting paid.
Well, it's all the perks of the job.
Checks in the mail, right?
He made all our boxes smaller out on the screen.
All right, should we get going, Maureen? We all set?
Yes, please.
All right, so I got to read these opening statements. There's an additional opening statement, so may take me a little longer to read this. Please I'll read the work session opening statement first. This is the May 13th, 2020 work session of the Wyckoff Planning Board. It's now in session. In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, notice of this meeting appears on our annual schedule of meetings. A copy of said annual schedule has been posted on the bulletin board in Memorial Town Hall. A copy has been filed with the Township Clerk, the Record, the Ridgewood News, and the North Jersey Herald and News, all newspapers with general circulation throughout the Township of Wyckoff. At least 48 hours prior to this meeting, the agenda thereof was similarly posted, filed, and mailed to said newspapers. Members of the public are welcome to be present at this meeting. However, in accordance with Section 7A of the Open Public Meetings Act, participation on the part of the public at this meeting will not be entertained. And then I have a COVID statement I have to read. Please take notice that in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-6 et sec, and in consideration of Executive Order Number 103 issued by Governor Murphy on March 9, 2020, declaring a state of emergency in the state of New Jersey, the Planning Board of the Township of Wyckoff does hereby notify the public that to protect the health, safety, and welfare of our citizens, the meeting of the Planning Board of the Township of Wyckoff scheduled for Wednesday, May 13, 2020 at Wyckoff Town Hall, 340 Franklin Avenue, Wyckoff, New Jersey, 07481, will be conducted virtually through Zoom technology, and it will be live streamed on the Township of Wyckoff's YouTube channel. The work session is scheduled for 7:30 p.m. and the public business meeting will begin at 8 p.m. Due to the COVID-19 public health emergency, members of the public will not have access to Town Hall. These measures are implemented to allow members of the public to observe the meeting via live streaming and to provide the ability to comment during the periods for public comment during the meeting through Zoom telephone call-in technology. Joining the meeting by telephone will be utilized as security against the sharing of inappropriate video content. General instructions regarding access to the meeting will be posted on the Wyckoff website's homepage, www.wyckoff-nj.com, as a quote news item. To view the live stream planning board meeting, please access the YouTube link, which was posted on the Wyckoff website's homepage at www.wyckoff-nj.com as a quote news item immediately prior to the commencement of the meeting at approximately 7:25 on May 13th. At least 48 hours prior to this meeting, the agenda thereof was similarly posted. filed and mailed to the Record, Ridgewood News, and North Jersey Herald and News. So I guess, Maureen, this is like a prior notice, so anybody who wanted to get on the meeting should have seen this already, right? It's already been posted, right? Okay. All right, can we have a roll call, please, Maureen?
Ms. Caprio,
Here.
Mr. Yodo,
Here.
Mr. Homeychak,
Here,
Mr. Fisher, Mr. Seetsma, Mr. Boonstra, Mr. Alexandru,
Here.
Mr. On,
Here.
Mr. Pervin,
Here.
Mayor Shanley,
Here.
Chairman Fortunato.
Here. Okay, I hope everybody's doing well under the circumstances. It's good to see everybody. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the April 14th, 2020 work session and regular business minutes. Did everybody have an opportunity to look at those? Does anybody have any comments or changes on them? They looked okay to me. Anybody?
no,
If not, if nobody has an objection or changes, can I have a motion to approve both the work session and public business meeting minutes from April 14th, 2020?
So moved.
Anthony,
That was Anthony who moved it. Was it seconded?
Sure, second.
I think that was George.
George, Ms. Caprio,
Yes.
Mr. On,
Yes.
Mr. Alexandru,
Yes.
Mr. Rioto,
Yes.
Mr. Homeychak,
yes,
Mr. Pervin,
Yes.
Mayor Shanley,
Yes.
Chairman Fortunato.
Yes. Okay, and then we have a resolution for payment number 2005. There were some changes made to it. Maureen sent out an amended one a day or two ago. Did everybody have an opportunity to look at that? I think the change to it was the Kale amounts. Was that right, Maureen?
The Kale resolution, no, not the Kale resolution, the Lonigan resolution and the land swap resolution. I just
Okay.
got those vouchers from Dave Becker yesterday or the day before.
Oh, okay, that's right, because Dave Becker handled last meeting, so he prepared those resolutions.
Right.
Got them to us only a day or two ago. Okay, so has everybody had an opportunity to look at the amended resolution with regard to payment? There's no objection. Can I have a motion to approve?
motion to approve resolution 20-05 as before you.
Second that motion.
Anthony?
That was Mike who made the motion and seconded by Anthony.
Yes. Ms. Caprio,
Yes.
Mr. On,
Yes.
Mr. Alexandru,
Yes.
Mr. Rioto,
Yes.
Mr. Homeychak,
Yes,
Mr. Pervin,
Yes.
Mayor Shanley,
Yes.
Chairman Fortunato.
Yes. Okay, we have a number of resolutions for approval on the agenda. The first one is Azawi, 612 Lawlands Road. Mr. DeGenero, before we discuss this, has there been any update on the property line dispute between the applicant, Mr. Azawi, and his neighbor, Mr. Schwab? You're aware of?
I'm not aware of any advancements on that discussion at all.
You haven't heard from Mr. Azawi or his neighbor at all?
No.
Okay. The resolution, if you look at it, it allows Mr. Azawi to apply for the permit for the fence and install the fence up to the point where there's no dispute as to the property line, or there's also the alternative that he could wait until the property line dispute is resolved. Does anybody everybody have an opportunity to look at that? Does anybody have any objections or corrections?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think the way we left it was they were to submit a revised plan showing where the fence would fall short of that area of in question, and that we would be able to issue a permit only on the revised plan. We wouldn't be able to issue a permit on the plan as submitted because then we are essentially approving the location of it.
I think the
I
resolution
think we did.
requires that he submit an amended plan, right, Mr. Hanley?
Yes, it is. It's in subsection D and further resolved. And this regard, the applicant is required to submit to the board revised drawings indicating the point that is not in dispute. Anybody wants that changed, we could change it.
I think that's pretty clear. Is that language okay with you, Mr. DeGenero?
Yep, if it's all as it's in there, yep.
Okay. All right. Any other question or any other comment or on the resolution?
Nope.
Oh, I just had one, Mr. Hanley. I did, just on the second page in the paragraph 8, there's a G at in the last line. There's a G at the end of within.
Where is that?
On the second page, paragraph 8, the last line. Within just has.
Oh, yes, okay.
You just pull that out and then everything else looked okay to me. Okay, if no other comment, can I have a motion to approve the Azawi resolution subject to the one spelling change I mentioned?
Motion to approve.
Motion. Second.
That was Mayor Shanley, and I think Mike Komachek was second.
Mayor
Yes.
Shanley and Mike Omichak. Ms. Caprio,
Yes.
Mr. Riotto,
Yes.
Mr. On,
Yes.
Mr. Alexandru,
I don't know that I was there for that was I?
I don't know, do you want to abstain?
Yeah, I'll abstain.
Mr. Pervin,
Yes.
Mayor Shanley,
Yes.
Chairman Fortunato.
Yes. The next matter we have on the resolution is for the Kale matter, 225 Van Houten Avenue. I know Mr. Whitaker's here and he submitted a letter in that regard, and I assume he wants to address this at the regular meeting. So why don't we put that off until discussion at the regular meeting and move on to the Grace Church resolution, which is 555 Russell Avenue. Does everybody have that one? Has everybody had an opportunity to review that one? It looked okay to me. If nobody has any objections or comments on it, then can I have a motion to approve, please?
Motion to approve Grace Methodist Church Memorial Life
Second.
resolution.
Second.
Aye. Mr. Riotto,
Abstain.
Mr. Homichak,
Yes.
Ms. Caprio,
Yes.
Mr. Alexandru,
Yes.
Mr. On,
Yes.
Mr. Pervin,
Yes.
Mayor Shanley,
Yes.
Chairman Fortunato.
Yes. Okay, the next resolution for approval is the Lonigan matter, Lonigan Resolution 726 Wyckoff Avenue. Did everybody have an opportunity to review that? Any comments or objections to the form? Looked okay to me. Okay. Not hearing from anybody. Can I have a motion to approve the Lonigan resolution as written?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Caprio,
Yes.
Mr. Riotto,
Yes.
Mr. On,
Yes.
Mr. Alexandru,
Yes.
Mr. Pervin,
Yes.
Mayor Shanley,
Yes.
Chairman Fortunato.
Yes.
And yes from me too.
Did I miss you?
Yeah.
How could I do that? Mr.
Not easy.
Homichak, Mr. Homichak,
Yes. Yes.
Okay, and the final resolution for review is the Township of Wyckoff and Timothy Brackett, 358 Crescent Avenue. This was, there was an initial resolution prepared, and then there was an amended one submitted. Was that yesterday or today, Maureen?
That was today at the end of the day. I did not send it to all of the board members.
Okay. I looked at the amended one, and the only change, and I understand that it was amended, and Maureen, you can correct me if I'm wrong, it was amended because Mr. Becker, who was the attorney on this at the last meeting for the township, for the planning board, had a discussion with Mr. Landell, and they agreed to tweak some of the language. Is that correct?
No, he actually had a discussion with Mr. Landell about the land swap. Oh, wait, is that the one we're talking about?
Yeah, that's the one we're
Yes,
talking
he amended it because he spoke with the township attorney.
Okay. I think the only change I saw was at I think it's the same except in paragraph 13 at the end, subsection 1. That was the only, the language is similar, but it was changed slightly, I guess, with regard to submission to Bergen County and receipt of an approval or waiver. That was the only change I noticed. Did anybody see anything else different?
I didn't
Otherwise,
notice anything different other than that.
yeah, the substance of it is essentially the same, and I guess Mr. Landell just wanted to make sure that it was, the language just was slightly clearer, so.
Right.
Okay, so Mayor Shanley picked that up as well. If anybody has any other comments or objections, speak now, please. Not hearing anybody, can I have a motion to approve the resolution as amended in its second form?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
Tim, Sarah,
Yep.
Correct.
Mr. Rioto,
Yes.
Mr. Homechak,
Yes.
Ms. Caprio,
Yes.
Mr. On,
Yes.
Mr. Alexandru,
Yes.
Mr. Pervin,
Yes.
Mayor Shanley,
Yes.
Chairman Fortunato.
Yes. Okay, the next item is for review and discussion is the Kale matter, 225 Van Houten Avenue. Again, Mr. Whitaker has submitted a letter on that, and I know he wishes to address the board at the public meeting. So we can hold off until the public meeting on that. And the only other item on the agenda is the Galasso Enterprises matter, which is 825 Wyndham Court North. Mr. Whitaker is the attorney on that as well. He submitted a letter requesting.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, I'll abstain for continuity.
Okay,
And same for me for Colasso.
okay. So when Ms. Caprio and Mr. On are abstaining, the only comment I was going to make is that it's Mr. Whitaker has requested an adjournment in writing to carry this to the June 10th, 2020 meeting. And that he noted in his letter, as we had previously discussed, that he will renotice all property owners and republish prior to the hearing. So that matter won't be heard tonight either. And that is, unless anybody has anything else to discuss, that's all we have on the agenda for the business meeting, for the work session. And we could have, does anybody have anything else? Otherwise, a motion to close the work session, and then we'll pick up in 7 or 8 minutes at 8 o'clock.
Motion to close the work session?
Second.
Mike, George. Ms. Caprio,
Yes.
Mr. Rioto,
Yes.
Mr. On,
Yes.
Mr. Alexandru,
Yes.
Mr. Homechak,
Yes.
Mr. Pervin,
Yes.
Mayor Shanley,
Yes.
Chairman Fortunato.
Yes. Okay, so this is the same feed, so we should just basically hang around until it hits 8 o'clock? Right?
Yeah, we're not gonna log off or anything. If
Okay.
anybody needs to go get a drink of water or something,
So everybody be back at,
now's the time.
be back at their computer
Yeah,
with a minute or two before 8 o'clock, please.
Yeah, and this live feed is still on YouTube, right, Nancy? Just to make sure.
Yes,
Are we-
Mr. Mayor.
All right, just making sure everybody knows it's a live feed.
yeah. So
Okay.
So if
No
you're
alcoholic beverages.
gonna be making noise or something, mute yourself.
And don't log out of the meeting.
Right. Okay, we'll see everybody in a few minutes. Hey, Maureen, I have 8:00.
Yes, me too.
Is everybody here? Everybody back?
Mark? There's Mark. 13. Everybody's back.
Anybody not here, please state your name. Okay, I'm gonna read the opening. I don't think it's necessary, Maureen, that I read this whole thing again, because this was posted, right? The COVID notice?
Yes,
Right. Okay, so I'm just gonna read the regular opening. The May 13th, 2020 public meeting of the Wyckoff Planning Board is now in session. In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, notice of this meeting appears on our annual schedule of meetings. Copy of said annual schedule has been posted on the bulletin board in Memorial Town Hall. Copy has been filed with the Township Clerk, the Record, the Ridgewood News, and the North Jersey Herald and News, all newspapers with general circulation throughout the Township of Wyckoff. At least 48 hours prior to this meeting, the agenda thereof was similarly posted, filed, and mailed to said newspapers. Okay, can we stand? I don't have a flag, unfortunately, but,
Hold on, I got one.
oh, there we go. Great, Maureen. Can
There
we?
we go.
I got one. I got about
I've got one, and I think Mayor Shanley's getting one too. There we go.
Yeah, I got one.
We stand for the Pledge of
We
Allegiance.
got to stand, so.
uh-oh, we lost Rob.
Where'd he go?
He's frozen.
Oh, he's frozen.
Pledge allegiance.
To the flag
Flag.
of the United States of America
America.
And to
and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
nation,
under God,
God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Gotta get Rob back.
We lost our chairman.
Frozen.
Uh,
He left, prior to come back in.
yeah,
That's what you got to do when it freezes.
yep. Kevin, take over.
Okay.
No,
I think the vice chairman, that's.
yeah, I meant Kevin.
Perfect.
Turpin.
Oh, okay.
I think Rob's coming back in anyway.
Yeah, you hope.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm just texting him.
it's our first Zoom planning board meeting, so we'll get there.
I think much more successful than the conference call one was.
Yeah.
He just needs a minute. He's coming back in.
Okay.
Here it comes.
Yep.
He's muted. There we go.
Oh, sorry about that. Was that the only one that went off?
Yes.
Now,
I don't know.
yeah,
My-
and now you're coming in as Mike Omachek.
Your Mike, we
Yeah,
got two Mike Homa checks.
But the handsome one's up on the top.
I'm appearing as Mike Homachek?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They can change, You can change your name there, Bob.
All right.
We won't hold it against you.
Oh, I am showing that. Okay.
Why is that?
He used my link to get in, I think.
That's.
I did use your link, Mike. That's right. I did. All right. Anyway, so I guess can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
We did.
We did it without you.
Okay. All right.
You,
Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, we can. Ms. Caprio. Here. Mr. Ioto.
Here.
Mr. Homechak.
Here,
Mr. On.
Here.
Mr. Alexandru.
Here.
Mr. Kervin.
here,
Mayor Shanley.
Here.
Chairman Fortunato.
Here. Posing is Mike Homechek. Okay, so at the work session, which we just concluded, we approved the April 14th, 2020 work session and regular business minutes. We also approved resolution number 2005 for payment. We approved resolutions on Azawi, which was 612 Lowlands Road. We approved a resolution on the Grace Church, which was 555 Russell Avenue. We also approved the Lonigan resolution, which was for 726 Wyckoff Avenue. And finally, we approved the Township of Wyckoff Timothy Brackett matter, which was a resolution, which was 358 Crescent Avenue. And the Galasso application, Mr. Whitaker is here to address the planning board on the Kale matter, but he did send a letter in requesting an adjournment of the Galasso matter until the June meeting. That is now scheduled for, is that June 10th, Maureen?
Yes.
So that is scheduled for June 10th as of now. However, if Mr. Whitaker is to proceed, he will renotice the required members of the public on that before the meeting. And the only thing left for consideration then is the Kale resolution, which is on the agenda to be memorialized this evening. However, Mr. Whitaker had sent a letter in, and we will allow Mr. Whitaker at this point to, I assume everybody's had an opportunity to review Mr. Whitaker's letter. Is that correct? Anybody who hasn't?
This is the letter dated March, right? March 30th or something?
The March 30th letter. Unfortunately, Mr. Boonstra is not here this evening, and nor is Scott Fisher, both of whom were very involved in the deliberations on this and who were present at all of the hearings. So unfortunately, we don't have them here. But Mr. Whitaker, why don't you, I assume you want an opportunity to speak. So why don't you, this is your opportunity. I hope you're doing well. The floor is yours.
He's muted.
Everyone hear me now?
Yes.
There we go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good evening, members of the board, and I trust everyone is well. For the record, Bruce Whitaker from the firm of McDonald Whitaker on behalf of the applicant, Gary C. Kale. You have my letter of March the 26th, and I appreciate the opportunity allowing me to speak to you this evening.
Mr. Whitaker, this is the March 30th letter, correct?
I'm sorry, March 30th.
Okay, just want to make sure we had the right letter.
In essence, I recognize that you have a resolution of denial. I'm not disputing the fact that you've denied the applicant's application. The purpose of my letter was to formulate a procedure to adhere to the resolution as it pertains to the soil removal aspect. There's a number of factors to be considered as it pertains to the removal of the soil. I get it loud and clear that your concern was the soil was not tested. Your concern was that the soil should not remain there and should be removed. So I'm not disputing that. My letter outlines, and I won't go through it step by step, but my letter rather outlines a procedure that I think would be beneficial to everyone involved to solve the problem. And I say what we're looking to do is to proceed under the direction of Mr. DeGennaro for the soil to actually be removed, for then the inspections to be made as it pertains to the drainage, and to the wall structure. Now that there's no soil there, the walls can be inspected, and working on the basis that, and remember, Mr. DeGennaro, from what he saw, said that the walls and the drainage was satisfactory. Then at that point, to install the additional drainage that was proposed to be done, and then to put soil back after it's been tested in connection and in regards to the procedure that Mr. DeGennaro always imposes on any soil movement application. So what I'm really looking to, and my outline in my letter, is really for the purposes of moving forward based upon your decision. I'm not suggesting that you reconsider the application. It is a denial, and I recognize that. I'm not disputing the decision you've made. I'm looking to hopefully outline a procedure to get this done. I understand from what I read today that this work can now be accomplished as of May the 18th. And Governor today is issuing an executive order that allows non-essential construction to occur. I guess this would have been in the gray area anyway, because you could say, hey, this is soil that has to be removed. So would that be essential to be removed? But that's not going to be a debate as of May the 18th, since that order is coming down. So that in basically is the approach that my client would like to take to get this totally resolved. I am not at this point in a position, I've offered this, obviously without prejudice. I'm not in a position at this point to proceed with an appeal. Appeals are not only costly, but it really doesn't solve the problem that you're concerned with. And now appeals, based upon the new orders that have come down, become more cumbersome for everyone, because it's no longer a 45-day appeal time. It's 60 days from when executive orders are canceled. And on the basis of that, we as land use attorneys don't know when that will be. So this could go on. If we did it in an appeal process, it could be, that soil could be sitting there for a year and a half or 2 years before we get the litigation done. Hear me loud and clear. I'm not suggesting litigation, but that's one of the things that now fits there when I evaluated this. So what I'm looking to do is be the problem solver. And I request that you consider this and offer me your comments in regards to it.
So, Mr. Whitaker, thank you. Just so I understand, so you're really not here to pose any opposition to us signing the resolution. So the resolution is really a separate matter. The board's already made a decision, and the resolution, which we need to go over, with the board, reflects our decision and really should be signed. Your letter is really your request. Now, if the resolution is signed this evening, you're requesting an alternate course now that the resolution has been signed and the applicant's application's been denied, correct?
That's correct. In the first paragraph of my letter, one of the sentences says, the purpose of this letter is not to interrupt your decision-making power in finalizing the resolution, but propose a procedure in meeting the board's expectations pertaining to having the soil removed. So it would be a post, I have not seen the resolution, but it would be a post-denial aspect. In other words, you've done the denial. And so if your resolution says, okay, the soil movement application is denied, there has to be a next step. And I'm trying to outline in my letter the proposal of what that next step would be. Okay,
understood. Mr. Hanley, I'm going to throw this over to you because I know there was a procedure I discussed with Mr. Hanley that there, and Kevin, you can clarify this, that Mr. Whitaker or any applicant who's denied would have 45 days after the resolution is published to.
Well, let me just go over this. First of all, there are two issues here. The first issue is the voting on the resolution. Okay, under the statute, NJSA 40:55D-10G2, only the members who voted for the resolution can vote on the memorializing resolution. So the three people who voted against are not considered cannot vote on whether to accept the resolution, the written resolution that we are presenting tonight. All right?
So for clarification, Mr. Hanley, then it would be, since Mr. Boonstra and Mr. Fisher are not here tonight, the resolution can only be voted on by myself, by Mr. Rioto, by Mr. Homechek, and Mr. On. Is that correct?
Right, and you need a majority of the vote, the favorable voting members have to vote in favor of the resolution. So in this case, there are 4 people, 3 would have to vote in favor of adopting the resolution.
Okay, before we get to the resolution, can you address the second issue you were going to?
Right, the second issue is, it deals with Mr. Whitaker's letter. And he said, I'm not looking for a rehearing, but it is to a certain extent a reconsideration or rehearing. There is nothing in our ordinance that deals with that type of situation. However, in speaking with Dave Becker and people who've been on the board for a longer period of time than I had been on the board, there was at least an informal procedure to allow additional testimony to come in, which we have in this letter form. I discussed that with Mr. Whitaker, and we talked about the procedure that would have to be followed. As I said, Wyckoff does not have a procedure for this, but informally they have allowed it. Both Mr. Whitaker and I reviewed the planning board model rules, and there is a model rule that allows for a rehearing. And just dealing with the procedure says that an applicant or an interested party may by right within 45 days of the publication of the memorializing resolution move the board for a rehearing. Now, that could be done as simply as by filing a letter, such as the letter that Mr. Whitaker submitted on or about March 30th, 2020. The board would then have to agree to accept this application, and they can schedule a hearing. The hearing, though, has to be noticed and has to be published. So the neighbors would have to be noticed and it'd have to be a publication. That appears to be a procedure, even though it's not adopted. It does eliminate, as Mr. Whitaker raised the concern of the possibility of appeal, and the appeal being in limbo for an extended period of time. If the board agrees to hear an application and he could notice, he could come back, he could do his presentation. I don't see anything in the model rule that says that it's just like a motion. He could possibly bring a witness in or 2, and then the board would vote on whether they would reconsider their decision and change it, or they can decide that they're not going to change it. So that's the procedure. It's, as I said, we're in a bit of uncharted waters here, but I think that this protects the board and also gives the applicant an opportunity to present its arguments, and we could then as a group consider it rather than just do it now, because at this point we're here to do a resolution tonight. We're not here to accept new testimony in a rehearing.
If I could respond to that. Let me take the second issue first, and that is my letter. My letter is not a request for reconsideration. My letter is a request that once you've denied the soil movement, there has to be a next step. What comes next? What happens next? And my understanding, I haven't read the resolution, is that the soil has to be removed. So my outline is to say, here's the procedure that I am suggesting be done. And then if it's removed at a future date, Mr. Kale could then come back with notice to put soil back that's been tested. What I'm trying to avoid is, so you pass this resolution that the soil removal application is denied, and then the answer would be, or the question is, well, okay, what happens next? So I'm not looking for you to reconsider. I take it and understand you denied it. What I'm saying is, let's solve the problem. And that's why I did this outline of how it would happen. And that is, the soil gets removed. I'm not suggesting the soil stays. We got 60 truckloads at a minimum that's got to come out of there. And that's what you're looking to do. My client, I don't think is going to engage me to go through more public hearings. I don't think, frankly, that that's in the cards with him and me.
Well, Mr. Whitaker, I got to say that part of the concern here is we haven't signed the resolution yet, and we're going to discuss that after we're done discussing with you. But assuming it is signed. Well, assuming the resolution passes this evening, it still needs to be signed and published. So you certainly have. It's not something that needs to be acted on tonight. It may be premature for us to decide what to do. It certainly is at this point when we haven't passed the resolution. Secondly, I am concerned that Rudy Boonstra is not present this evening. He wasn't feeling well, and he is on the town council, and he was obviously very involved in this application and had very strong feelings about it. So I would certainly like, and I know I did speak to Mr. Boonstra before the meeting, and he told me he wasn't going to be able to attend. And I know he would like to weigh in on this. So I am concerned about him not being here. And also Mr. Scott Fisher, who works for the DPW and is on the board. He also did some inspections with regard to the work that was done, and he is not available this evening either. So I would certainly like to get his input on this as well. So I think at this point, it's premature for the board to rule on your request. So I'm not saying we're denying it, or I don't think it's fair to present it to the board at this point until we have the other members available and we have an opportunity to look at it. Certainly, okay. Go ahead.
Let me address that. And Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, I think at this point, with a matter that you and I have now pending, that you should be recusing yourself probably from this matter for everyone's protection.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do know what you're talking about.
I mean, it's come. I didn't, during the course of it, but now there is something that there's a dispute between respective clients, and I think at that point, that's something just to protect you and to protect me, honestly.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
so we take the mystery out of it. Mr. Fortunato and I represent the Gator family. Mr. Fortunato is in a contractual relationship with them. Post-closing issues have arisen that have not been resolved yet. So I think at that point, recusal is appropriate.
Well, you may be right on that. Frankly, it would have been helpful to bring that up beforehand. I hadn't thought of that. But maybe at this point, then, until we, and you may be right, why don't we agree to put this off then until the next meeting? And then if I recuse myself, at least someone else will be the chair on it. It's certainly, I don't think it's fair to do it, on 60 seconds notice. So
no, I'm not suggesting you have to rush to this, but I got the impression from your decision making that one of the things you wanted to see was to get the problem resolved and get the soil out of there. The longer it's there, the longer that the drainage is not up to what you think the standard should be, the longer that there's a wall there that hasn't been completely inspected, that something should be done. That's why I made the proposal. I mean, I don't think the applicant's going to object if this thing languishes, but I was trying to get it to a point where the problem is solved. That's all I was trying to do, not a reconsideration. Just what do you do if you deny him? That's the question. Maybe Mr. DeGennaro weighs in on what he would think would have to happen. I don't know.
Well, this is a legal issue.
Yeah, okay. At this point,
and okay. Basically, the fact of the matter is that the board voted on this, okay, and you've admitted to that. All right, it's been denied. What would normally happen under these circumstances is there'd be a resolution that would be adopted, and then you would have an ability to take it up on appeal. What we're giving you is an opportunity through what we feel is a very flexible reading of the model rules to allow you to come back. And what you're saying is you want this matter to stay open, even though.
No, Kevin, Mr. Hanley, let me just interrupt you because Mr. Whitaker has raised an issue of recusal here. I don't think at this point it's fair for us to consider this any longer, at least while I'm sitting on as chair. So whether or not I may need to recuse myself, I don't know. You know, he may be right, and maybe that is the proper action. But I think at this point we can certainly put off the memorializing the resolution, as well as responding to Mr. Whitaker's letter until the next meeting. That would be appropriate. And then if I in fact should be recused, then I should remove myself at that time. So I assume Mr. Whitaker has indicated there's no objection to him on that. And I assume there's no objection from members of the board. So why don't we just adjourn until the next meeting?
Let me interject. There's just one other thing, Mr. Hanley, that you've got to remember, that a board is required to create and pass a resolution within 45 days of its decision. Now, I'm not holding you to that. As long as I'm representing the applicant, I'm not objecting to it, but that is one of the rules under the municipal land use law. I would think perhaps based upon the current circumstances we're in, nobody's going to hold anyone to that. But after 45 days, an applicant has the right to go to a court, not on appeal, but have a judge create the resolution. I just want the board to be aware of that. Okay.
Well, and that's true, but you do represent your client and you have a right to waive that 45 days, and that has to be binding on your client.
And I'd have to check with my client before I could do that.
All right, then what you're saying is that
I would recommend to my client. I would recommend to my client that it be waived. Okay.
Well, Mr. Hanley, as I understand it, if you can clarify it, the law says that if the board doesn't sign it within 45 days, it allows the applicant to request a judge to form a resolution and sign it. So it doesn't change the board's decision. It
Still
just,
a denial.
I'm sorry?
It's still a denial. That's correct.
Still a denial. Okay. So Mr. Whitaker, as I understand it, if he doesn't consent to this, that he would then have to petition the court for a court to prepare a resolution. Is that correct, Mr. Whitaker?
That is correct. And I think, frankly, my client's in a position now that he wants to use his resources to solve the problem and not pay legal fees to move forward. I'll leave it at that.
I understand what you're saying.
Where I'm
Okay,
going.
well, I think at this point it's fair, because of the issue Mr. Whitaker raised involving me, that we put this off, and we can at the next meeting, perhaps I don't sit on it. I'll recuse myself at that time. But other than that, there's really nothing else to discuss at this point. Is there anybody else from the board who would like to be heard? Otherwise, I suggest we, do you have something, Anthony?
Yeah,
Otherwise,
I have a question about the procedure that Mr. Hanley was explaining. This procedure, if I could get a copy of that, because it's very unusual. I've never seen or been involved in something where a decision was made and then we kind of backpedal a little bit and dilute it somehow with some other things that might be going on. I'd like to see what that procedure entails. I'm not clear on it still, even having heard the explanation of it.
And so the board is aware. I don't think my client will engage me to come back for a reconsideration. Once again, all I'm suggesting.
Not your client's right to not come back, of course.
Yeah, of course. I'm saying what my client engaged me to do for the purpose now is to say, okay, if his soil movement application is denied and he accepts that, what's the next step? And I'll leave that to the board to
Look,
make.
Something has to be done over there. There's no doubt about it. I mean,
That's my letter.
Nobody's denying that. There has to be some kind of resolution. I'm not sure that ripping it out completely and dismantling it is the best resolution. So
As long as the board doesn't have a problem with it sitting there the way it is right now, then we'll wait for the resolution to be passed. That would take care of it. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Whitaker. Okay, well, with nothing else,
Can I take one other moment of your time? And that is Galasso. I don't want to talk about the merits of it, but I want to just let the board be aware that I am not postponing this to get the members of the public weary or the board weary. It took some time for my applicant to go to the DEP and get the approvals that were necessary there, if you recall. But more importantly, I participated in a 3-hour seminar on the virtual meeting and land use. And the general consensus of 152 people in that seminar was that if it is a complicated application or an application that results in a great deal of public participation, and the Galasso one was, we all know that it's not prudent to try to do it in a virtual Zoom meeting. So I don't think it's fair to you, the applicant, or the public to try to attempt to do one of these type of meetings where we had, if you recall, maybe 30 or 40 people in the audience, and I've got 4 witnesses. So I will probably, if we're not back, and hopefully we would be, but I don't, from what I hear, probably not. We're not back to live meetings in a council room, that you'll see another letter from me adjourning it until we can have that opportunity.
I would agree. I would agree with you, Mr. Whitaker. I think I think it would be extremely difficult with exhibits and with the public involved to do a meeting like that. So
I've gone through a couple of them already, folks. It's a headache. It really is.
Yeah.
I had one board member just said, "I'm done," and said, "I've got to excuse myself. I just couldn't stand it anymore." Everybody was getting dizzy. So.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Whitaker. Stay well.
Well, everyone have a nice evening. Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
With nothing else being on the agenda, well, let me open it up to the public. Is anybody from the public present that would like to comment on anything that's happened during the public meeting or the work session?
There are no attendees waiting that called in. We don't have anybody that called in.
Okay. So not seeing anybody from the public wishing to weigh in, we've closed the public comment session. And since the Kale matter is going to have to be put off till the next meeting, there's really no, because of my potential conflict. And just so the board knows, this only came up in the last 2 weeks or so with Mr. Whitaker. So this wasn't something that was pending at the last meeting. So it wasn't something that affected anything before this meeting. But he raises a good point, and I think it's fair that we adjourn that matter until the next hearing and deal with it at that time. There's really no harm because it's status quo at this point. So there's nothing being done on the property. The work's already been done, as we know, and it certainly is not going to hurt if it stays there for another couple weeks.
Mr. Chairman, one question. When Mr. Whitaker was discussing that there should be an action plan of resolution included in the memorializing document, should that in fact language be in there, or it's just strictly establishing what was said at the meeting?
Let me answer that. It should be what's established, what you voted on.
Okay.
Yes, I mean,
Hey, Scott.
certainly there was no.
Rob,
Yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
am I wrong in that? Did it sound like Mr. Whitaker is not going to be appearing after today on behalf of Kale, or did I hear incorrectly?
No, I think what he said was he didn't plan to have another request for reconsideration with another open public hearing.
Okay,
That's what it sounds like to me.
all right.
But again, at this point, I don't know that it's right to put anything in the resolution, since the board never discussed what was to happen as a result of the denial.
Correct.
So there can't be anything in the resolution to that effect because it was never discussed. And that is something that maybe should be discussed before we sign the resolution.
Well,
But in the case, go ahead.
Okay. The applicant presented their case and then they rested. That's their case. They can't have it both ways. They can't say we don't want to reopen, but we want to reopen. That's what they're doing in effect. All right. We voted on the case that was submitted to us. That's the only record that's before us. That's the only record that would be there on appeal. That's what we have to vote on.
But Kevin, what is that procedure that you were describing then? That's what it sounded like, having both. Having it both
What we were
ways.
doing was trying to come up with some resolution short of an appeal. Okay, and I had spoken with Dave Becker and with other board members who've been on the board a long time, and they said that we had an informal procedure that would allow for a reconsideration or a rehearing if the board voted in favor of it. In checking through the model planning board, what is it called? The planning board model rules, which we have not adopted in the town. They have such a procedure, and that's the procedure that I went over. Okay, and we haven't adopted it, but it leaves things open because at this point, we made a ruling, or the board made a ruling. There is a resolution that's been pending, and it has to be voted on by the board, the resolution, and that formalizes the vote, and it has to be published, and that starts the appeal process.
Right.
All right, but it's not based on new matters that would be brought in. The record is closed on this matter. The vote was taken. All right, and what I'm trying to do is come up with a procedure, at least the people who write the model rules feel might be viable, but it's not up to me to determine what's viable. We do not have an ordinance on this. If the board does not want to vote to give a reopening or whatever, that is the board's prerogative. Then it's up to the applicant to decide what they want to do.
Well, Mr. Hanley, we're putting the cart before the horse. If Mr. Whitaker hadn't raised an issue of conflict on my part, I would present the resolution to the board and we would discuss it and hold a vote on it. However, I don't think it's proper at this time that I do that. So what I would ask is that we just adjourn it till the next consideration of the resolution till the next meeting. And at that time, if a conflict exists, I will step down. But I don't think it's fair that I step down now and leave it to the board without me. I was involved in the whole process up until a few minutes ago, and I may still be entitled to be involved in the process, but I think it's something worth looking into. So it's not going to hurt to carry the Kale resolution until next meeting.
No, it does not hurt to carry it because the onus is on them to go before a Superior Court judge. But if the court does have the right to assess costs against the municipality.
All right, well, Mr. Whitaker has indicated he's highly unlikely to take that route. He understands the situation. In fact, he raised the issue of the conflict. So since he raised it, I think it's incumbent upon us. If it's something that I had raised, then maybe, he certainly could have brought it to our attention a week ago and we wouldn't even have had to address it tonight. But under the circumstances, I think it's appropriate we adjourn it to the June meeting. So
I have no problem with that.
if anybody has an objection with that, they can speak now. But if not, we'll just, we will carry the Kale resolution as well as Mr. Whitaker's request till the next meeting.
It sounds like, yeah, that's what we're going to have to do. But one of my suggestions, Mr. Hanley, is maybe, try to set up a subcommittee of the planning board of a non-quorum, three members who can meet with you and by Zoom and Mr. DeGennaro about evaluating what our options are and making recommendations to the planning board at the next meeting.
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would suggest if we're going to do a subcommittee, that at least one member that voted against that, that application, the denial of that application, be on that subcommittee.
I have no problem with that.
Okay. Well, that's something we can discuss in between
Okay.
before the next meeting. Set that up. Okay. If there's no other further business, so the Kale resolution will be carried to the June meeting, as is the Glasso Enterprises matter for the time being. If there's no other business, if I can have a motion to close.
Motion to close.
Second.
Who's second?
Tim,
No,
Shanley,
I did.
Tim,
Yep, Tim.
Ms. Caprio,
Yes.
Mr. Beato,
Yes.
Mr. On,
Yes.
Mr. Alexandru,
Yes.
Mr. Homechek,
Yes.
Mr. Pervin,
Yes.
Mayor Shanley,
Yes.
Chairman Fortunato.
Yes. Okay, everybody, have a good night. Thanks, everybody, for attending, and stay safe. And then with regard to the mayor's suggestion about the subcommittee, I think it's a good idea. We'll look into that and reach out shortly.
Very good.
Take
Thank
care,
you.
everybody.
All right.
Good night, everybody.
Great night.
Good night, guys.
Night, thank
Good
you.
night. Good night, everyone.
Thanks, Nancy.
you're welcome.
See you mañana.
Hmm.
Do I have to do anything else?
No, I'll stop the YouTube.
You got it?
Actually, you know what? While you're the host, switch
Give
me
it-
to host for a minute.
You got it.
Thank you. I can't stop the YouTube without it.